move on once again. China has issued a strong warning to the United States, saying it should not play with fire over Taiwan and denouncing remarks made by US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. Speaking at the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore, Hegseth had accused China of credibly preparing to use military force and rehearsing for an invasion of Taiwan. In response, Beijing has said that it had lodged solemn representations with Washington and strongly deplores the remarks. The Chinese Foreign Ministry reiterated that Taiwan is an internal affair and warned against the US against the issuing as a bargaining chip to contain China. China, which did not send its defense minister to the summit, also rejected US accusations of militarizing the South China Sea, stating that there had never been any issue with navigation in the region. It accused the US of turning the Indo-Pacific into a powder keg by deploying weapons in the disputed waters. We're now joined by Jim Rice once again to discuss this in further detail. Thank you, Jim. China has warned the US, quote unquote, not to play with fire over Taiwan. How serious do you think this warning is, Jim?
Well, thanks for giving me a chance to talk about this issue, because this is very important for people like me who live in this region. I believe that, if we just back up a moment, we can't really look at China, Taiwan without including the wider region, which includes the Philippines. And for the past several years, the PRC has been using its military, including its Navy, its Coast Guard, its maritime militia, and hundreds of fishing boats to bully and harass and prohibit Filipino fishermen who depend upon livelihood from the sea, as well as the legitimate interest of the Philippine Coast Guard. So if I could just, again, mention this earlier, the PRC has laid claim to the entire South China Sea since the late 1940s. And in 2016, in a case between the Philippines and China, which China boycotted, the Permanent Court of Arbitration struck down and invalidated China's claims to the so-called 9-dash line. But China has ignored the ruling and ignored international law and has continued to step up its bullying against the Philippine Coast Guard, as well as fishing boats in the region, and denying their traditional fishing grounds. This issue, I believe, the reason I'm mentioning this issue of the Philippines and China is it can't be isolated from China and Taiwan, because what China has been doing in the Philippines is using what is called gray zone warfare, which brings conflict right up to, but not over the line of armed conflict where people get killed. So in terms of playing with fire, I would suggest that the PRC has basically been doing what it always does, which is bully its smaller regional neighbors and deny the facts. Taiwan is, in fact, a democratic nation. It's a sovereign nation. And China's denial of this just is simply flying in the face of reality.
Jim, so China responded to Pete Hegseth's comments at the Shangri-La Dialogue and said that the US is the biggest troublemaker in the region, the biggest source of instability in the region. Is there any truth to that statement? What's your analysis of US foreign policy in the Indo-Pacific, and does China have some weight behind this statement?
Well, as always, China is basically misrepresenting the facts. As I mentioned with regard to the Philippines and China, the Biden administration over the past 4 years carefully built up an alliance of the Australia, Japan, the Philippines, and the United States in trying to counter the obvious aggression that the PRC has been carrying out against the Philippines for years. As you know, the Philippines is a smaller country. It lacks the military heft of the PRC, and it needs to have regional allies. And when China talks about the United States as troublemaker, they carefully omit the fact that Japan and Australia and the Philippines are basically banding together to try and offset the aggression of the PRC.
Jim Rice, thank you very much